Welcome to the Pat Imig Sports Network, broadcasting from Imig AI Studios in St. Louis, Missouri. Now, your host, Pat Imig.
Welcome into the show, ladies and gentlemen. It's football, heading into NFL Week 15. It's glad that you are listening or watching, however you may be consuming the Pat Imig Sports Network. I'm Pat Imig. Russell Baxter, the pro football guru, joins us. 40-plus years covering professional football in America, 2+ decades at ESPN, and a big fan of conference wins.
Yes.
So before we get into the upcoming week, Russell, last week we typically always talk about the Monday night game leading into that at the end of the show. So we might as well pick up real quick with what we saw in week 14. And it was, in fact, a slop fest. It was a lot of physical hitting. It was everything that kind of you'd expect, really, when the Chargers and Eagles get together. And now the Chargers are 9-5. The Eagles 8-6, 8-5.
8-5.
8-5.
Chargers are 9-4.
9-4. Sorry, I got my numbers confused. Big swing and a miss on that one. So, what did you make of that Monday night game in LA?
Well, the Eagles' offensive line, as good as it has been during all three of their recent Super Bowl runs, especially in the two they won, doesn't look the same. Obviously, Lane Johnson's not around. And somehow Saquon Barkley ran very well inside last night and ran pretty well generally. He had over 100 yards. A.J. Brown had over 100 yards. But Jalen Hurts, had as many turnovers in one night than he did the first 12 games of the season. And when you lose in overtime, and here they came down the field in overtime, and it looked like they were going to pull it out. And then, bing, there's another one. And
right.
All of a sudden, they've lost 3 in a row, and the Cowboys are hovering. Even though they got whacked on Thursday night at Detroit, they have 6 losses. The Eagles have 5. And as I've said, and I said to Zach as well, it has been easier to repeat as Super Bowl champions this century than it has to repeat as NFC East champions, because no one's done it in over 20 years.
How about that? So I find it interesting that A.J. Brown now, that's 3 games in a row for him with 100 yards receiving and 3 straight losses for the team. Last night, he did it, obviously, and then you mentioned Barkley's success, and it's like they solved the problem of, quote-unquote, getting everybody fed, but then the guy who normally is looked at in big crunch time situations, Devontae Smith, was a lot more quiet.
Right.
I'm not saying any of that is connected. I'm not saying Hurts goes out of his way now to hit A.J. Brown, but Brown also missed that first play of the game. He dropped a pass that was perfectly thrown, and there was about 2 or 3 other ones that he alligator armed. I don't know if he was afraid of getting hit or what, but it's just a fascinating soap opera. The world keeps spinning with the Philadelphia Eagles.
Well, I think if you really go back and look at them this year, you can't say they've played complimentary football,
right,
for the most of the year. I mean, think about a game in which they excelled on both sides of the ball. Remember, they were blowing out Tampa, and they eventually won the game, but that one almost got away from them. They let Denver score all those points in the fourth quarter and lost at home when they lost their first game. They've been as streaky as any team in the league. And this year has been the year of inconsistency and the streak. And it's teams that have started out well are foundering down the stretch. The Colts come to mind, and that's even before the loss of Daniel Jones. And teams like the Texans, who started out slow, are suddenly catching everybody's attention, apparently. Apparently didn't know the team still resided in Houston.
Right.
And that the season actually lasts 17 games and not 3. And They have a lot of momentum. So it's going to be interesting to see who's able to close the deal. And you and I have been talking about this for over a month. This could be a year where the team that gets hot the last 4 or 5 games wins the whole thing. And it's not necessarily going to be the team with the best record in the league. Remember last year, 2 teams went 15-2.
Yes.
Neither one of them won the Super Bowl. One of
So
them didn't even win a playoff game.
right, and that would be the Lions, correct?
Yeah. Yes.
So the Texans, I think right now that's the team. If they get if their offense gets hot, and they've definitely showed bits and pieces. I think CJ Stroud's looked pretty good since that injury return, and they've shown some ability to run the ball too with the rookie. You know, with the defense as good as that is, that would be kind of my pick right now to saddle up on if I was gonna, pick somebody. On the other hand, the Chiefs, the team that the Texans defeated last week. I don't know about you, Russell. We haven't talked about that performance yet, but that was actually one of the first games in a while that I remember the Chiefs defense. They actually played really well. They showed up for 3 quarters, I thought. I mean, that looked like the old Chiefs defense of last year and the year before, and they still lost, which is very alarming if you're a Chiefs fan.
Right. Well, 3 picks by Patrick Mahomes. And you're right. It looked like they were going to come out on top because they played the style of defense they played like in 2023. Kept it close. Like last year, pulled games out. Last year was more unusual. They had a lot of games with field goals at the end, or they blocked a field goal at the end to preserve a win, and so on. But they look like toe to toe, and even as good a defensive team as Houston was. And then they just kind of faded, and I can't put my finger on the total picture with them. But it's interesting that they wind up scoring 28 points and losing a game in which they give up 31. And then they hold the Texans in check and they can't move the ball consistently all night. So that just tells you that their offensive line has issues. Their defensive line, and there were some weird picks in that game. That the one off of Kelsey was kind of crazy. But the one thing you notice about Houston, boy, do they fly around the ball, and it's not just those. There's a lot of teams, or any number of teams, who have great pass rushes that sometimes mask and at the same time help their secondary. I don't know if that Texans secondary necessarily needs a lot of help.
Yes, and I would when you just say that description, to me, the LA Rams defense comes to mind. As far as a defense that has the pass rush that might actually make the rest of the defense look better than it is.
Yes, I think so, because as we saw in the Carolina game 2 weeks ago, Carolina ran the ball 40 times. They were very persistent about it, and I can recall other defenses that had great pass rushes, and teams, coaches would trap them. They entice them to come upfield and they run past them. And as I've said 100 times, it's hard to sack the quarterback when the running back has the football. So
this is true.
That's what you say, and that's why when you play the Rams, you want to come up with a balanced attack, and don't come out flying, because they're going to get to your quarterback and maybe force a turnover and make life very easy for themselves.
One last thought on games from Week 14, going back to the Monday night game with the Chargers and the Eagles. Is it, and maybe it's just easier said than done from the couch where I'm watching. I'm not a football coach, never claimed to be, but when on both sides, actually, for both offenses going up against both defenses, where the quarterback was being pressured all night, where that both defensive lines are legit, regardless of how the performance in the game is going. But in this case, both quarterbacks are being pressured.
Mm-hmm.
Why not? Am I wrong? Am I stupid for thinking like keep an extra tight end to block and just send out 1 or 2 people on routes? I mean, I just feel like the idea of trying to drop back 35 times when you're getting pressured, it just doesn't make much sense to me, especially when your running back's performing well.
When you make yourself one-dimensional, all you do is make life easier for the opposing defense. Okay, if you're determined, that was always my gripe with Mike Martz when he was the head coach of the Rams. That they would have games where they'd run the ball less than 10 times. They'd fall
Right.
behind and he'd say, screw it, I'm just going to start pitching. So, and sometimes it worked, sometimes it didn't work. Okay. I mean, I'd go back to the Super Bowl against the Patriots, and I would have liked to seen a little more Marshall Faulk in that game. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, you and me
Okay.
both.
Yeah.
I would say the current Rams coach, Sean McVay, he sometimes, that if they have a weakness, sometimes it's that he has the run game going and then he just falls in love with the pass and stops running it. I think he kind of did that against Carolina for a couple of possessions mid-game. And the way the game's played today, 1 or 2 possessions can determine the outcome. It's not like, 50 years ago or 30 years ago even, where it wasn't as easy to come back or for the opponents to score points on you.
You see on a regular basis now, double-digit comebacks at least once or twice a week.
Yes.
That was never, there was a season, I think I talked to you before. It might have been the 2014 season. Yeah. I went and tracked it, and including the playoffs. I hope I got the year right. So in other words, 17 weeks, and so 21 weeks of football. Minimum 1 double-digit comeback, all 21 weeks. That's absurd.
Yes.
We see it regularly now.
It does. That's why if it's 14-0, 17-3, like even that score used to seem like a lot, and it's really not at all.
Well, look at Cincinnati, completely in control on Sunday. Okay, and then Joe Burrow turned into Santa Claus, and there you go.
And that was against Buffalo. It was fun. It's always fun to watch a snow game.
Yes.
No matter where it is, but Buffalo and Green Bay seem like they always have the best snow games. So the Bills have that rematch with the Patriots in Week 15. Patriots coming off of a bye, and the Bills defense, everyone's still talking about Josh Allen, and not that he shouldn't be talked about, but and he is a one-man band, maybe give or take James Cook on the ground, obviously, but the defense for Buffalo, for me, I don't trust that defense at all. So I would lean towards New England in this game. But where do you see this matchup? So what's the key matchup? What stands out to you?
Well, I'm going to do a little quick perspective here. Think about this. The 2 teams in the league that currently own the longest playoff streak in terms of seasons are the Chiefs and the Bills. Okay, Kansas City's been to the playoffs every year since 10 years in a row. They've won the AFC West 9 years in a row. The latter will not happen this year. Buffalo has been in the playoffs 6 years in a row. They've won the AFC East 5 years in a row. If they lose on Sunday, that's the end of that. New England would have a 3-game lead and a sweep of the Bills, and the AFC East would be decided. That is pretty startling with 3 weeks remaining in a season. That the Chiefs and Bills, who have played each other in the playoffs numerous times, and in a couple of AFC championship games, are going to maybe have to scratch and claw their ways to get into the postseason.
So you're saying the Patriots can essentially, with the victory, they can clinch on Sunday?
No, they will clinch.
They will. Yes.
Right. They're up by 2 games. They would be up by 3. They beat Buffalo in Week 5 on Sunday night, 23-20. So they can secure the division on Sunday by beating the Bills.
It's definitely a year of transition in the NFL, it feels like. You've got the Ravens, and the Steelers. I mean, somebody's going to win that division, but none of those teams are what they, we think of them as, and they're historically. And then you've got the Buffalo Bills aspect you just threw out. And then I saw earlier today, I was reading some stuff and saw that if this is the first time since I think Ben Roethlisberger and Mark Sanchez faced off in the AFC Championship game where there won't be either Mahomes or Brady in the AFC title game. So it's definitely a transitional season, I think, which I think a lot of fans maybe, if they're just prisoners of the moment, they watch these games and they're like, I don't even know what I'm watching. I don't even know who's good. And I think it's just that the defense is an old school ground game is as valuable or more so right now because it isn't really a Pro Bowl quarterback type game anymore where it's Brady throwing 50 times a game and winning.
No, it's a different style of football. And that's why in the last 2 years, the running game has come back. Last year it was back with a vengeance. But it came back because teams adapted to the fact that, all right, well, we're just going to play against the pass. Well, if you're going to play against the pass, we're going to run it on you. Okay. Football is cyclical.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, and that's how it is. And now you see, now we don't have the big year that we got from Saquon Barkley. Jonathan Taylor's had a big year, kind of slowed up a little. I wrote that I don't think it's out of the question that James Cook winds up leading the league in rushing when it's all said and done. And if that's the case, O.J. Simpson, 1976, the last time a Bills player led the league in rushing.
There it is.
Yeah.
So the Colts are in Seattle this weekend, which is always a nice long trip up to the Northwest. Not the place that it used to be when the 12th man was there, but I think they're starting to kind of get it going again. Whether it's Phillip Rivers, who I know that the Colts were meeting with today, or someone else, is this season for the Colts like
flipping away?
Is this it? Because the Jaguars and the Texans are in front of them too.
Yeah, it is slipping away. The turnover problems by Daniel Jones. Now no Daniel Jones. Phillip Rivers was signed to the practice squad.
Okay.
As a matter of fact, does he play this week? I don't know. If they elevate him, the first thing that struck me when I saw the news, which I didn't believe at first, because contrary to popular belief, you don't believe everything on the internet.
That's right. Abraham Lincoln taught me. Abraham Lincoln once said that.
Yes,
you can't believe everything you hear on the internet.
The first thing I thought of was Phillip Rivers is first time eligible for the Hall of Fame this year.
Right.
Which means if he goes back and plays or is on, in fact, I'm going to call somebody to find out if he's on a roster, how exactly it works. Does he play? Okay. Does he have to play, in other words, to reset his Hall of Fame eligibility as far as being retired for 5 years? So.
Yeah, we'll find out.
But could he play? They're pretty bad. Riley Leonard's hurt. Anthony Richardson's on IR. They do have Brett Rippon, I believe, on the practice squad, unless they parted ways with him, and I don't know from last night. But I understand the Phillip Rivers thing. If he's in shape, I totally get that. He'd be handing the ball off to Jonathan Taylor a lot. You don't know. You don't know if he's still in shape. He does have some history with the organization. Everybody took a turn playing Colts quarterback for a couple of years there. I mean, Matt Ryan comes to mind.
Yeah, I mean, that's one where if you were to ask me who's played quarterback for the Colts, I would not have named Matt Ryan.
Right.
Out of sight, out of mind. It's like
yes. I think he was doing CBS. I don't know if he's doing CBS games now. I don't know if he's still in the studio.
Yeah, he's still in the studio.
Is he still in the studio? I don't watch that many pre-game shows. I'm kind of biased to one that I used to work on. So
yeah, I don't watch very many of them either, just because.
Well, because they're not the pre-game shows don't really set you up for the pre-game anymore.
No, absolutely
not at all.
So another great game for NFL Week 15. The Packers, the Broncos, lots of defensive blitzes, sacks. Will there be more than 3 or 4 touchdowns scored? I'm not sure. I would bet money on that. But Who has the edge in this game, or what are you looking at that's intriguing to you?
Well, it's funny because the Packers, they're probably playing their best football right now. And, some people proclaimed them after 2 weeks and after the trade, they were a Super Bowl team. And of course, they went into Cleveland and lost. They had a tie with the Cowboys. Uh, so got beat at home by the Panthers, got beat at home by the Eagles. So they've had, but they epitomize, Pat, they epitomize the entire season. Okay. That's just
Yes.
how it's been this year. There has been very, very few consistent teams this year. And powerhouse, and probably the two most consistent are obviously Denver and New England. I should say four: Denver, New England. You can't ignore 10-game winning streaks, no matter how some ugly they are.
Agreed.
But Seattle, and the Rams, who they don't. Neither one of them, I don't think, has lost 2 games in a row this year. And in fact, every time Seattle loses, and by the way, Seattle's lost 3 games by 9 points
Yes.
this year. And every time they've lost, they've had at least a 3-game winning streak afterwards. Seattle has the biggest point differential in the league right now, which may surprise some people considering the Rams and so on, but plus 161. So, and both of these teams were 10-7 last year. They're both 10-3. So it's going to be interesting. One of them could win 12 or 13 games and not win the division.
Yeah.
Very much like Minnesota won 14 games last year and didn't win the division.
Right. To me, Seattle, I know that they lost to the Rams already, and they'll have that rematch again here, I think in 2 weeks, maybe.
It's a Thursday night game, as a matter of fact.
What a great Thursday night game.
Mm-hmm.
To me, Seattle is the most complete team. If you were to just go, their defense to me is superior to the Rams, just from the eye test, without looking at numbers. I don't know how you feel about that, but then when it comes to crunch time, if Sam Darnold can just play be an average quarterback in a crunch time game, I think that they can beat anybody in this year's NFL. And I think a Patriots Seahawks Super Bowl would be an outstanding matchup. Not only for a historical rematch, if you want to go that route,
Right.
but also Darnold and his story, and then Drake May. Obviously, everybody knows that story right now too. So to me, those are the two teams. If I had to go Patriots or Broncos right now, not that you asked, but that's where I'd go. I think I'd go Patriots and Seahawks.
Well,
as much as I'm putting my faith in Sam Darnold.
Well, the Seahawks Patriots Super Bowl 49 it sometimes goes under the radar, especially that fourth quarter. They're down 10, they rally, the wild catch. And then Marshawn Lynch not getting the ball, which I'm sure people are still scratching their head over that, because it seemed almost anticlimactic.
It was very odd. I agree with you.
Yeah, it is. But it was a great game, and it was two teams that were playing well too that year. And remember, 2016 was the year that Brady got suspended the first four games, and then they rallied and so on. But by the end of the year, they had AFC title game, humiliated the Steelers. Seattle was just coming off a year in 2013, they had one of the best defensive units to ever play a single season, the 2013 Seahawks. It was really a big time back and forth. And Brady wasn't. I think Brady threw 2 picks in that game. So they both had their little ups and downs. It was really a good football game, with just kind of a weird. It was like the end of The Sopranos. It was like, what the hell happened at the end?
Right. Well, I'll even argue that, and I'm glad it happened this way, being a St. Louis Rams fan at the time. When the Rams Titans Super Bowl ended, you knew what happened, but even that was kind of like, it's just odd because you have all this excitement and emotion, and it just stops, and it's like, oh, it's over.
Oh, it came up
Okay.
closer.
Al Michaels' call of that I thought was just like perfect because it wasn't like I don't think he would ever say it was his best call, but he's just like, can he make it? No, he cannot. And the Rams have won the Super Bowl.
That Super Bowl featured one of my favorite plays of all time in the Super Bowl. And the play of the game, obviously, Mike Jones. I get that. But earlier in that drive, when Steve McNair had two guys draped on him and broke the tackle and still completed the pass.
I want to say Kevin Carter was one of the defensive players.
I think you're right. I think is that, and I think after, isn't that he wanted to come out of the game, and Dick Vermeil said to him, "You want to come out now?"
Right. Yeah,
now?
That was classic mic'd up NFL films.
Right. No, and that was, that was a year where you had two teams go completely out of nowhere. Completely out of nowhere. I mean, the Rams were, the Cinderella story with Kurt Warner, and the Titans, who had not really had anything, their first Super Bowl appearance, and it's still one of my other favorite stats. Jacksonville was probably the best team in the league that year, 15-0 against the rest of the league, and 0-3 against the Titans.
Wow. And that's big game Tom missing those potential victories against Jeff Fisher of all coaches. That's
Yep.
That's unlikely. So back to this season, Chiefs and Chargers also play in week 15. Mm-hmm. So we talked about the Chargers already. We talked about the Chiefs a little bit already, but I'm still not going to count the Chiefs out as far as I don't think they're going to continue to lose. And I just feel like if their defense plays the way they played, I feel like I thought Philadelphia last night had the Chargers figured out. It seemed like the momentum was all going their way, and for whatever reason, it didn't pan out. But if the good Chiefs defense shows up, I think that they can get back to 500. But we'll see what happens. What are you expecting in this AFC West rematch?
Wow. I mean, you have to go back to 2013, which was Andy Reid's first year with the Chiefs, the last time the Chargers swept them. And it wound up not being that big a deal because then Andy Reid and the Chiefs basically owned them forever. When the Chargers won in Brazil this year, they snapped a 7-game losing streak to Kansas City. I agree with you. I don't think they're going down without a fight. And I don't think it's inconceivable they could win the rest of their games. I mean, they lost a tough game to the Chargers. They lost a tough game to the Broncos earlier this year. I thought they played one of their best games offensively against the Broncos, against that defense. But as you and I talked about a couple of weeks ago, chunk plays. Okay, Bo Nix kept on hitting passes downfield when you thought Denver was in real trouble. He, hit a pass against the defense that was supposed to be formidable. So, I think there's obviously too much pride and so on, and it's obviously a little bit of letdown because they're not going to win the division for the first time since 2015, which was Denver's Super Bowl year, but they've still been in the playoffs 10 straight years, and if they somehow get in, they'll tie the record by the Patriots, which was 11. So there's too much chaos in the other divisions for them to just disappear and somehow get in the playoffs, even though they're not playing great football. I'll give you an example. Let's say they and the Ravens wind up with identical records, just those two. Well, they would go to the playoffs over Baltimore because they beat Baltimore. So Baltimore slumping these last two games has put a real twist into things because everybody, or I shouldn't say everybody, I hate when I do that. A lot of people thought once Baltimore got on a roll, they were just going to keep rolling.
It was the old Ravens that were back, right?
Well, 5 turnovers against the Bengals on Thanksgiving night at home. They've lost back-to-back divisional home games. And That's gonna now. I will also say this: when you give up 466 yards rushing in 2 games, um, I wouldn't be shocked if Miami beat Pittsburgh on Monday night. I don't care what the weather is, because that team is up and down, up and down, up and down. That's who do you really count on, Pat? We could do a whole show as who's the most reliable football team in the league this year, and you would probably be limited to one hand.
I think, yeah, I would say I know what I'm going to get from the two NFC West thoroughbreds.
Yeah, I agree.
I know what I'm getting for the Broncos because I know that their defense is going to keep them in every single game. And I guess the Patriots.
I would say the Patriots too, because they've been just efficient,
Right.
not
And
spectacular.
I will say too, like I don't always hop on the hype train of stuff. Like I think sometimes things are overblown when they're not as what they're claimed to be. But
Right.
watching Drake May, that guy he is a very decisive quarterback. And I think there's something to be said for that, especially the way the game's played today with what we were talking about earlier. Defenses, more skilled than ever, and pressure. It seems like pressure on the quarterback is just from every potential playoff team, Green Bay, Denver, etc. So having a quarterback like that, I think, is actually very beneficial beyond just the surface stats that he's doing. Which they're not service stats. I just mean people point to the stats all the time. But
I know exactly what you mean. There is a quiet efficiency to them. And when they played the Giants on the Monday night, I mean, the Giants wind up scoring a touchdown, a pretty spectacular play, and so on. But you never got the sense. You know what it is about New England? There's no sense of panic with them. They're just very quietly go about their business, and I'm sure that's reminiscent of somebody.
I mean, it's when you talk about quietly efficient, also at the quarterback position, that sounds like a certain guy in the first few years of his career as well.
Right.
But before he became, a 30 to 40 to 50 touchdown a year guy.
Right. Well, Eric Mangini talks about this. This is something I talked about forever. The New England Patriots, their first Super Bowl title season, they scored 3 offensive touchdowns in 3 playoff games. They scored 3 defensive / special teams touchdowns in 3 playoff games. One of their touchdowns was scored when Drew Bledsoe and not Tom Brady threw a touchdown pass in the AFC Championship game, and they won a Super Bowl. And then you fast forward to 2017, Tom Brady throws for 505 yards in the Super Bowl and loses. The evolution, or maybe de-evolution of football.
Yeah, that could be that. Maybe those are the 2 points.
Yeah.
So you mentioned the Dolphins and Steelers. That's the Monday night game, and I think at this point, I know with those 2 teams, I'm going to get entertainment. It might not be because it's quality football or great defense, especially because both of those defenses have shown a penchant to disappear at times, especially Pittsburgh. Yes. I think with Miami, it kind of makes sense because they don't have the quote unquote names that Pittsburgh does. But what's your thoughts on this? I mean, I know that the running back for Miami is looking like he's going to play, which is, to Mike McDaniel's credit, he has gone back to leaning on the run game to get this team to almost 500.
Right. Like I said, when you can't stop the run, you're vulnerable to anybody. And A-Chain is an excellent running back, very fast running back. You get him out in a screen or anything like that, and a lot of trouble. I have to say this about the Steelers, because it was a week, obviously, where there was a lot of piling on Mike Tomlin. Aaron Rodgers came to his defense in the press conference. They say, but I'm going to throw something else out there because I think it shows the fickle nature of something that people in our business do. Okay. So after the Cowboys beat the Chiefs, at least one person wrote, or even before that, the George Pickens trade was the worst trade in NFL history. Okay. Now, I'm saying that for a reason. Fast forward to the following Thursday. Cowboys lose. George Pickens getting a little heat.
Sure.
We're all body language experts. We all know scowls. Can they re-sign him? And ironically enough, DK Metcalf has the best game of the season for Pittsburgh. Now, they were unrelated moves. Okay. I mean, in essence, Metcalf replaced Pickens.
Yes.
But then I just found it funny that it went from the worst trade in NFL history to now you know why Pittsburgh got rid of him. I mean,
well,
some of our colleagues, some of these are like windshield wipers.
Yes.
So
I would agree. A lot of hot air coming too from that.
Yes, with the defroster on. Yes.
So ahead of this weekend, anything else on the schedule that I know the Panthers are coming off their bye too, and they're going to be playing the Saints. And you cover, for everybody listening or watching, you can follow Russell's work covering the Panthers as well as the Seahawks and the Chargers and the Bills on SI. Anything to me, if the Panthers are a real team, they got to win this game coming off of a bye week. And the Saints, maybe they have that proverbial letdown game because they just had an upset over Tampa Bay.
Well, don't forget, Pat, they also upset the Panthers earlier in the year.
See, I did forget.
Yeah, they beat them in Charlotte. And I was writing something about that today, and I think you and I talked about this months ago, to be honest with you, that the Saints, even though their record is kind of poor, they look like a team that fights. And Tyler Shuck has certainly offered something since he got in there. They went into Carolina and held Carolina a season low 7 points and 175 yards of offense. And I believe that was a week after the Panthers beat the Packers. Okay. So, and they just went into Tampa and beat the Bucks. So they have 3 wins this year, and 2 of them are road divisional wins. You want to talk about playing spoiler?
Well,
they could. Yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I mean, I think if you're a fan of the Saints, the encouraging thing, regardless of overall record, it looks from the outside that they're being built for that division, which sounds like you would think would be common sense for every team, but teams that are dysfunctional don't necessarily do that. With those victories against superior teams, at least record-wise, that's got to count for something for the future, right?
Yeah, I just find it interesting. And now, who would have thunk at maybe the beginning of the year when Tampa was rolling and the Panthers were 1-3? I mean, and I don't know how the league does this, but I always had a sneaking suspicion going back to May. Now, I can't remember, Carolina was 1-7 last year and won 4 of their last 9 games, and Bryce Young played very, very well. I found it interesting that the league scheduled them to play the Bucks in week 16 and week 18. And maybe they were thinking, maybe this team's on its way up. So, I don't begrudge that. They also picked the Eagles to play the Commanders week 16 and week 18. And the way Philly's playing, the Commanders might catch them.
Yeah. So, no kidding.
It's almost like tailor-made. Now, I will say this, Carolina's got the Saints this week at the Superdome. Then they have this and they also host the Seahawks in week 17. So I'm not sure. Are we going to get a 9-8 division champion in the South? Could we get, like we did a couple of years ago, Brady's last year, they were 8-9 division champion. So it's hard to win more than 10 games in the NFC South. I don't think it's happened the last 4 years. So
and I do think that, on one side you could say, well, it's just not a good division. But the NFC South versus NFC West matchups this year, the Bucks went into Seattle and won that classic.
Yep.
Right. The Panthers took it to the Rams. We talked about that. So it's not as if the NFC South teams are just getting bullied by And maybe
No,
they're just
not at
beating
all.
each other up so much in their own division. And Tampa Bay, speaking of beat up, I mean, they've been hurt all year, haven't been at
Yes.
full strength. And I think if they had their full cast of characters, I think they'd probably be, 2 games up, maybe 3 games up in the division.
Yeah,
But
I agree. You're not having Mike Evans has certainly hurt. You want to talk about the real safety blanket for any quarterback that plays with him. This guy's, he'll wind up in Canton one day. There's no question about it. And I think they thought they were getting back week. I don't think he wanted to play in last week. I don't think he got activated last week. And maybe they're saving him for the stretch run here. So, and we'll see them Thursday. They have the rematch with the Falcons, who they beat back in week one. So it's a head-to-head weekend for the entire NFC South, and um, it's going to be right. I mean, that's going to be division that's obviously going to come right down to the wire. And history would favor the Bucks. They've been in the playoffs 5 years in a row, but history has a way of changing things. I mean, I give Dave Canales credit. He took over a 2-win team. They've won 7 games this year. They won 7 games the previous 2 years combined.
so that's going to be this weekend versus the Saints, NFC South, all NFC South contests. And a team we didn't talk about really because they've had it. Well, we talked about them because they lost in the playoffs last year. The Minnesota Vikings. They're playing Sunday night, but because we have to celebrate every team here, we don't actually have to do that. I was just looking at some of the Vikings history randomly, and we decided that would be this week's battle for ChatGPT versus the PFG.
Russ, the PFG versus ChatGPT.
So in my hand, Russell, I have the top 5 Minnesota Vikings players of all time as told by ChatGPT. And we've got 5 honorable mentions as well. So let's go ahead and start with your list first. We'll go 5 through 1. Who do you have at number 5 for the Pro Football Guru's top 5 Minnesota Vikings of all time?
One of the most versatile running backs who was really an all-purpose back before the Thurman Thomases and the other guys were. You didn't really hear the word total yards from scrimmage until like Thurman Thomas came into his own. And the guy had a real nasty spin move as well. Chuck Foreman was an outstanding back. Certainly deserves Hall of Fame consideration. There's no question about that. If he ever gets in one day, it'll be interesting. But yeah, Chuck Foreman stands out to me. He was part of those Super Bowl teams in the 1970s, and obviously they didn't have any success. But he was a dynamite player, very exciting player, great runner, excellent hands. Chuck Foreman.
So you actually brought him up to me earlier this year when I asked you what running back from the past reminds you of Jonathan Taylor or has flashes that Jonathan Taylor of the Colts shows. So,
Right.
So you're consistent with your appreciation for Chuck Foreman. Unfortunately, ChatGPT has no appreciation and does not have him listed in the top 5 nor in the honorable mentions list.
Well, that's certainly interesting. Okay.
So, strike 1 for ChatGPT. We're gonna punish them for that. At number 5, they actually have Chris Carter.
Okay.
952 total catches, 110 touchdowns. Chris Berman always used to say, all he does, catch touchdowns. Number 4, who do you have?
Member of the Purple People Eaters, who's in the Hall of Fame. Although you could put another guy who just passed away, I believe, earlier this year, Jim Marshall, more known for the wrong way run, but an outstanding player. Carl Eller was a great defensive, very fierce defensive end with the Purple People Eaters. Again, part of those 70s teams. And this is not going to be the first Purple People Eater you're going to hear from me. Carl Eller.
Okay, so not in the top 5, but is an honorable mention on this list. So Carl Eller, and they do call him the Purple People Eaters pillar. So
okay.
At number 4, the Vikings have Adrian Peterson.
Okay.
4-time first-team All-Pro.
As usual, I'm very old school.
Yes,
And so on. I'm very old school. Because I think about the entire history.
Right.
That the franchise that goes back to 1961 is an expansion team. So number three, regardless of what uniform he was in, and he certainly opened eyes as a rookie, it has to be Randy Moss, in my mind. I mean, he was a phenom from the start. Obviously wound up with some other teams. Still holds the NFL record for touchdown receptions in a season with 23. He did that with the Patriots. Played for the Raiders. Had a cup of coffee with the Tennessee Titans.
Which, if you had asked me to name one other team that he played for, I would have forgotten that one, just like Matt Ryan and the Colts. So,
if I remember right, he played for the Titans and never caught a touchdown pass with the Titans.
wow, that's a sign that you're not a good organization.
All right. No, you mean them, not me. Right.
Yes,
okay.
yes, them, yes. Not you. It's not you.
So
it's
I'll
them,
go
Russell.
Randy Moss, number three.
Okay. Well, ding, ding, ding. ChatGPT has Randy Moss at number three, actually.
Oh, okay. I'm feeling good about my next two.
Yes. So at number two, who do you got?
Often the GOAT for the 3 Super Bowl losses. He wasn't the starting quarterback for all 4. There's a good trivia. Joe Kapp was the quarterback in Super Bowl 4 and in the original longest yard, as a matter of fact. So Fran Tarkenton. I have to go Fran Tarkenton. So Scrambler for years held the record for touchdown passes and passing yards. All those marks have been eclipsed, but still one of I think less than 20 guys that throw over 300 touchdowns. I think 342 is his touchdown pass number, and for some reason 47,003 passing yards sticks in my head.
So we've got another ding, ding, ding. ChatGPT has Fran Tarkenton listed at number 2 on their list of greatest Vikings players.
Okay.
So and they said what you mentioned too. When he retired, NFL's all-time leader in passing yards and passing touchdowns, and saying that he revolutionized scrambling for quarterbacks. Definitely,
those Viking teams that lost those Super Bowls, which I think was 4 in an 8-year span. Okay. They were outstanding teams and in some ways have been punished for not winning those Super. In fact, in the 4 Super Bowls that they lost, they scored 0 points in the first half of all 4 of those games.
Wow.
Okay? But let me put in perspective who they played in those 4 Super Bowls.
I'm guessing the Steelers in one of them.
Well, they started out with the Chiefs, who won more games in the history of the AFL than any other team. They had to face the Dolphins the year after the Dolphins were perfect. And I'm not alone in thinking the 73 Dolphins were better than the 72 Dolphins, just because they weren't undefeated to me. They began the Steelers dynasty. The Steelers first of their 4 Super Bowl wins in 6 years was against, and then they played the Raiders, who couldn't get to the Super Bowl because of Miami and Pittsburgh. And things just got proverbial worse for them. Yeah, but they finally gotten a lot of the recognition. For years and years and years. Side note: Paul Krause, who played primarily his entire career with the Vikings, still holds the NFL record for interceptions. He had 81 interceptions, and it took him forever to get in the Pro Football Hall of Fame.
That's nuts.
You do something better than anybody else, and they're holding you back. That's a little odd to me.
So, at number 1, do you have Paul Krause?
I do not.
Oh, we might have another correct. Go ahead and give us the Guru's number 1 Minnesota Viking of all time.
He is one of only 2 players to be named the league's most valuable players as a defensive player. And he also is one of the most fascinating stories in the history of the Pro Football Hall of Fame. And that would be Alan Page. Defensive tackle, a quick defensive tackle. He wasn't Mean Joe Green with the size and all that. He was more of an inside rush guy, prolific pass rusher. And here's this first story. So when he was, I want to say in his late teens, the Pro Football Hall of Fame was being constructed in Canton, Ohio. He was part of the construction crew / cleanup crew as a young man. Obviously, he knew he was going to be headed there. He probably cleaned off a little space for himself.
Probably
So, could
did.
you
Yeah.
imagine a young man like that who goes to Notre Dame, Supreme Court justice, I believe, in Minnesota? Brilliant. I actually just saw something with him on TikTok, a public service announcement and so on. I don't think Alan Page is one of the great football players of all time, and to me, unequivocally the best Viking.
So ChatGPT agrees with you.
Wow.
They have him. They mentioned the same thing. NFL MVP 1971, first defensive player to ever win it. So then that means the only other one was Lawrence Taylor, right?
Right, in 86, and he's the last one, yes.
So for those of you who are unfamiliar with Alan Page, we're going to have to look him up on YouTube. There's got to be some highlights of him.
Oh, there are. And it's funny, Pat, he actually finished his career with the Bears for a couple of years, which was ironic. I mean, to go to a division rival, especially when it wasn't free agency when he played. But his quickness, and that, we had a run there. They all had nicknames: the fearsome foursome, the
Yes.
purple people eaters, the doomsday defense, the steel curtain. There was even a pass rush in Baltimore in the 70s called the Looney Tunes, which was part of the Colts won the AFC East 3 years in a row when Burt Jones was their quarterback and Lydell Mitchell was their running back. And I know I'm dating myself, but that's okay. So
the Doomsday defense, that's Dallas, correct?
Correct.
Obviously,
yes.
steel
and there were a
curtain is
couple of
Pittsburgh.
different versions of that, as a matter of fact, the Doomsday defense. Like I said, fearsome foursome, which was Deacon Jones, Merlin Olsen. They're both in the Hall of Fame. It's going to be interesting this year. The Veterans Committee, for those of us who grew up in this era, and one of them is a little more modern. The three senior nominees who have gotten this far are Ken Anderson, the former Bengals quarterback who took them to their first Super Bowl.
Mm-hmm.
Roger Craig, who was the first player to catch and run for 1,000 yards in the same season. And another member of the Steel Curtain, L.C. Greenwood, who was a great pass rusher, 10th round draft choice. And you always knew where he was on the field because he wore golden shoes.
Style.
Yes. Well, it wasn't style. Apparently, the story, you have to go back and research the story. The story goes back that you were required to paint your shoes. Okay. You had to paint your shoes. And I guess he told the trainer, I don't care what, just paint them yellow. And it stuck. So when you go back and look at his highlights, you can't miss. And the guy's like 6'6". He's real tall and lanky, but really a big time hitter. And he's one of those guys, like a lot of the Steelers. He's not in the Hall of Fame yet. It would be nice if he got in. Guys like Lynn Swann and John Stallworth and don't necessarily have like the greatest regular season numbers compared to history, but what they did in the postseason during that run is probably what got them into the Hall of Fame. And if you look at Greenwood in the postseason during that Super Bowl run, he was a real force in terms of a pass rusher.
So we chatted with the judges, and we're actually going to award you the prize pack for today. So after that 0-2 start, you came back strong, and ChatGPT was aligned with you. So I was surprised as you are. I wasn't surprised. I wasn't thinking that they would give so much love to the purple people eaters, but here we are. So congratulations, Russell.
Thank you. Well, here's the reality of something too. Yeah, the Minnesota Vikings haven't been to the Super Bowl since 1976.
True.
A lot of their greatness has been more individual greatness. The Moss, the Carter, they're more known for losing NFC championship games and, again, their Super Bowl record, which again, they were in the Super Bowl 4 times in 6 years, but boy, talk about bad luck running into some of the greatest teams of all time, Pat. Those Dolphins, Steelers, Raiders, Chiefs teams were like icon. The Chiefs, who they played in Super Bowl 4, their defense, starting defense, has 6 Hall of Famers.
Wow.
There's only 11 guys on the starters. That's more than half of their starting defense is in the Pro Football Hall of Fame.
It all could have been wiped away had they just defeated the Atlanta Falcons in the 98 NFC Championship game. That would have been a great Super Bowl. The Broncos trying to repeat versus the Vikings.
I totally agree. Terrell Davis is MVP year and so on. But the one thing that always stands out to me about them losing that championship game was as much blame as Gary Anderson got. They still let the Falcons mow down the field on them with a 7-point lead and tying the game.
Right.
So, I mean, I know Gary Anderson missed the insurance, but.
And I believe that year he was perfect on everything up until that point.
Correct.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
But what a fun team to watch, though. There was something about, something about Cunningham, too, having a resurgence. I know Brad Johnson got hurt early in that year. But I've never seen someone throw a deep ball like Cunningham. And I don't even mean accuracy or the way it drops. I just mean I've never seen somebody with such a
sling it.
Yes.
Right.
But it seemed like a slingshot almost. It was like this big, long, I don't know, it was crazy.
He didn't have a traditional quarterback's body. Okay, he was tall and lean when he snapped. And I talk about this play all the time, and people can Google this. And I'm sure a lot of people remember. They're playing the Buffalo. He's with the Eagles. They're playing the Bills up in Buffalo. He's backed up on his inside his own 5. He drops back into the end zone, moves around. He ducks under Bruce Smith backwards. He felt Bruce Smith. He went backwards and winds up throwing a 95-yard touchdown pass to Fred Barnett.
How about that?
Now, the Eagles lost that game, but it is one of the most incredible plays you will ever see because of his awareness of Bruce Smith, of all people. And that was the Bills' first Super Bowl team. It wasn't like they were
up there in age or anything.
Yeah, they were. Google. I might even send it to you later. It
sounds like a plan.
It's such a fantastic play.
That's the Pro Football Guru, Russell Baxter. It's always great to talk NFL with you. Enjoy Week 15, and we will catch up again next week with a little bit more clarity.
This is the best time. No more bye weeks.
That's right.
A full slate the rest of the year.
Follow him on X at Bax Football Guru. You can also follow him on SI, and you can follow me at Pat Imig. That's PATIMIG, or the Pat Imig Sports Network. Get Pissin, GETPISN, on all your socials, including YouTube. We can't do 4-letter handles, apparently, Russell, so we had to put the get in front of the PISN. So I know that's not why you're laughing, but that's the rule of the land. So
I get it.
He's excited. He's so excited he might, wet his pants. Russell, take care.
All right, you too, Pat.
See ya.
Thanks for watching the Pat Imig Sports Network, powered by Imig.ai. For exclusive sports content and clips you can't find anywhere else, follow along on social media at Get Pissin'.
Every single night, from the tip off to the touchdown, I break it down. Sports talk, royalty, I wear the crown. Dynasties rise, legacies never fall. Every win got a story, I tell it all. Last minute buzzer beaters, ice in the vein. Post game speeches and champagne rain. From the World Cup heat to the Super Bowl lights, calling plays in the zone. Open up your eyes, Big Sports Network, dropping value like clockwork. If you really want insight, get it right. Watch the videos every single night. Pat Imig Sports Network, dropping value like clockwork. If you really want insight, get it right. Watch the videos every single night. Talking MVPs, yeah, I see the vision. Grinding for the chip, this is more than a mission. Trade talks, headlines, locker room vibes. Breaking news quicker than a 40-yard time guide. Eyes on the court, hard in the ring. Every athlete's journey, I let that sing. Olympic gold to college ball pride. If it's clutch, I got it covered worldwide. Pat Imig Sports Network, dropping value like clockwork. If If you really want insight, get it right. Watch the videos every single night. Academic Sport Network, dropping value like clockwork. If you really want insight, get it right. Watch the videos every single night. Lights on, game on, no cap when the game's strong. Underdogs to the Hall of Fame, every win got a name. That Imig Sport Network, dropping value like clockwork. If you really want insight, get it right. Watch the videos every single night. That Imig Sport Network, dropping value like clockwork. If you really want insight, get it right. Watch the videos every single night.